is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the Movie Report. My name is Sutton Brown, and thanks again for tuning in. Now, if you have not checked out any previous movie reports, this is a series where every week I will review each and every movie, TV show, and video game that I have watched or played within the past week. Now, if that's something you're into, this is the perfect place for you. If that's not something you're into, oh well, I can't help you. I'm sorry. So with that said, before we jump into the 6 movies/TV shows that I watched this week, be sure to hit that subscribe button for future content and comment down below any movies, video games, or TV shows you think I would be interested in, and I would be happy to check them out and report on them in a future movie report. Now with that said, there are these 6 movies/TV shows. They are going to be subcategorized in a couple different ways. Before I dive into the reviews, I will introduce what the subcategory is, and then you can decide whether you stay along or not. Final thing is that those chapter markers for those subcategories will be down below in the description. Now with that said, let's get started with the movie report. Number 1 is going to be first time watches. Now these are any movies that I have not seen that have come out over a year ago, and so any movie 2023 and before that is allowed to be on this list. I have seen 2 movies that have come out over a year ago, and the first one is going to be Split. Now this is another movie from director M. Night Shyamalan. A couple weeks ago I covered his latest film, Trap, and this is also directed by him. It stars James McAvoy and Anya Taylor-Joy, and also Betty Buckley as the main villain's therapist. Okay, I got that right. So this is a movie that I've always wanted to check out because whether you like M. Night Shyamalan or not, you can always respect some of his craft in some of his movies. And at least for me, I tend to enjoy his movies, and so I never got a chance to watch Split, and here we are with that movie. And this is a movie that, with all the hype I had, maybe I was overhyping it a little too much because it turned out to be an okay movie. Now, that's no disrespect on M. Night Shyamalan. I think that he does a great job executing on the concept, which basically is you have this kidnapper who has multiple personality disorder, something in the veins of that, and the characters that he kidnaps are trying to use some of these personalities to help escape. And then there is the theory that there is one personality that is out for blood. Now, if that's not something you're into, then you're probably not going to like this movie. And at least for me, I think it delivers partly on that concept. You also have a great cast with great characters and some interesting exploration on, trauma and depression. And there's all these different things about mental health that I think this movie is trying to tackle. And at least for me, it doesn't really approach it in a way that deviates from other movies that I've seen. And also, I feel like it's trying to battle between being a thriller and trying to be this dramatic exploration of these themes. And so, for part of the movie, you'll have these genuinely terrifying moments where these characters are trying to escape, and you have kind of this psychopath with multiple personalities, and these characters are creeped out over it. When it does that, it's really cool. But then, at some points, it'll deviate to characters talking about how to approach mental health, how to help people dealing with it, and, of course, people being neglected for having it. And at least for me, it felt like there was 2 great ideas for a movie that were clashing together, and in the end, didn't satisfy me to the full capacity it could have. And so, again, no disrespect on M. Night Shyamalan for his ambitions with this movie, because I think it pays off a lot. But in the end, my overall experience was it was just okay. And it's not my favorite, but it's still not a bad movie. Film number 2, and I don't know how much crap I'm going to get for this one, but screw it. Black Adam. This is a movie directed by Juan Colette Serra, who also directed Carry On that I covered on a few weeks ago. You should check it out. It's awesome. And it stars Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson as Black Adam, an anti-hero in the DC Extended Universe, which has ended, but we're now getting the DCU, which is going to be awesome. I look forward to it. Anyways, so this is a movie. When it came out, it got a lot of crap because of being overhyped, because of feeling like a plainly generic action superhero movie that should have come out a long time ago. That's at least what most of people who saw this movie felt. And at least for me, when I watched this movie, I did not get the crap that this movie has been given. And the reason I say that is, even though it's a flawed movie, you can definitely tell where there's kinks in the villain and some of the dialogue, and especially the tonal shifts, which are really bizarre. This movie's a blast. I had a good freaking time watching this movie. Because you have a great cast, you have a great set of superheroes, you have some really great action sequences, and despite the tonal shifts, there are some really fun moments this movie has. And what I think this movie does best, that I don't feel this movie gets enough credit for, is really exploring the dichotomy of good versus evil. So your main character is framed as a typical bad guy. Like you see him kill people, like sometimes in really brutal ways. But then you also have people saying he is a bad guy because of all these crazy things that he does. But at the same time, I feel this movie doesn't just paint this character as someone who's just bad. It doesn't also paint its heroes, or the people claiming to be heroes, as just supposedly good. You have these great parallels of someone like Black Adam, who does a lot of crazy, terrible things, but you can also feel the pain that he's going through as a character. When you explore his past and as the film progresses and you get to know more details, you get to understand why he does it, why he's so brutal, why he is merciless in many sequences, and maybe why he's a little bit over the top with the way he kills people. It's because he's in pain. And especially the heroes, like you have the heroes who are trying to do the good thing, but you also have the heroes shown as misunderstanding some of the concept and supposedly framing somebody as a villain that's not technically a full-on villain, that's trying to do the right thing, but is just doing it in the wrong ways. And so you kind of see the point where some people feel they're the villains. They're technically the antagonists in a bit of a way, but then they also have the comeback story in the end, where Black Adam and the Justice Society all get to come together and fight the real bad guy, who is pretty disappointing, but I feel this movie does not get enough credit for the exploration of good versus evil with everyone else. I think Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, yeah, he could have been a little more charismatic, but for some reason his somewhat more flat and stoic-like performance worked really well for Black Adam. So you really get to feel that he's kind of trying to hide that pain that he's going through. And also, like, you can tell he's intense in some sequences. And so this is a movie that, with great action sequences, you got a great cast, great set of superheroes. Yes, this is a movie that I enjoyed the heck out of, and I would not mind rewatching again. The next category is new releases. These are any movies that have come out 2024 and 2025, basically within the past year. There might be a little leeway with how close that is, but I'm going to count it if it came out in 2024 because it technically is still a new release. And the first movie was actually one of my favorites. There was actually two really great ones that I'm going to talk about. The first one is the best Christmas pageant ever. This is the Christmas movie that was directed by the creator of The Chosen, Dallas Jenkins, who I'm a massive fan of. It stars Judy Greer, Pete Holmes, Molly Bell Wright, and Lauren Graham. And this is a movie about a family that is basically seen as the worst family you could possibly imagine. And suddenly, they come to church. They learn about a Christmas pageant, and they want to be a part of it. But the town, because of their perception on this family, do not want this family to come and be involved. Especially considering this is a special year for the Christmas pageant. They hold sacred. Now, this is a movie that I wanted to watch ever since I heard about it. Didn't get to it. And then my mom is like, let's watch it as a family. So we're like, bet. We did it. And this is a movie that I feel really captures the spirit of Christmas. This is a great Christmas movie, and it could definitely become a movie that I could watch almost any Christmas and be down to watch it as a family, recommend it to other families. Because this movie understands what the spirit of Christmas is. And I think what the best thing this movie does is with the message, which is obviously trying to convey that Christmas is about the celebration of the birth of Jesus Christ, that it's not trying to overly preach that to you. It's not trying to say, you better believe this or else you are wrong. It's trying to show everyone who watches this movie that Jesus Christ was born for you. And that's what I believe that the director was going for, and I love that about this movie. Because no matter if you believe or don't, whether you celebrate Christmas or don't, you can at least come from this movie understanding why people believe he was born for you. And so you have a really great concept, you have a really great Christmas spirit, and also a really great cast, some really great laughs, and some really great profound character moments. I believe this is one of the best executed stories of characters finding the Christmas spirit. Like, I'm not kidding when I say that, because it really is. Like, again, you have this family who is basically disowned from society for being these terrible people. Like, they make mistakes, but then as you watch the movie, you understand why. You understand their family life. You understand what they're missing in life. And as they explore Christmas, you start to see how they gain something they never had before. And so you get to see great growth with these characters, and especially with the society they live in, you get to see great growth from that. There's some really extremely well payoff in the end with some plot points, and especially with the main family it focuses on, aside from the other family who is seen as terrible. You just have a lot of great dynamics between these two families. One that sees the good in them, and one that is trying to see the good in everyone else but can't because of how society views them. And so, because of that, I felt like this movie touched on some heartstrings that I was not expecting. And that finale doesn't deliver the most slam-bang finale you'd ever expect, but I don't think it needed to. It delivered a finale that's simple and in the moment, and really helps you feel what the director was going for. So this is a movie that I would recommend anybody to check out for Christmas time. It's not Christmas time right now, but I don't care. You should go watch this right now. Film number 2 in new releases is Transformers 1. Now, this is a movie directed by Josh Cooley and stars Chris Hemsworth, Brian Tyree Henry, Scarlett Johansson, John Hamm, and Keegan-Michael Key. This is a movie, of course, in the Transformers universe. Now, if you have been hidden under a rock and haven't heard of what Transformers is, basically there were 5 films about Transformers that came out like kind of over a decade ago. Like, there was a lot of them, and some of them are good, some of them are questionable to say the least. And then you had a Bumblebee movie, which I thought was really good. And then last year, it might have been 2 years ago, they released Transformers Rise of the Beasts, which I have not seen yet, but I want to. And so, I was excited to check this movie out. And might I say, this movie blew all expectations out of the water and quickly became one of my favorite animated movies of 2024. And the reason that is, it reminded me of so many animated movies that I love in terms of feeling like a kid's movie, but also not feeling like a kid's movie. So you have the appeal to younger audiences with cute characters, you have funny jokes, and a lot of great action sequences. But then, in terms of adults, like somebody like me who's trying to be an adult but failing in life, I feel that this movie tackles so much about loss, about revenge, about oppression, about all these things that several of us deal with in our lives in a way that is fun and also heartbreaking. And so you can really feel that the creative team behind this movie had a lot of care for these characters, for this story, and especially for the world building. This movie has some of the best animation from what I saw last year. It has some of the best character moments from last year, especially between Optimus Prime and Megatron, because basically what this story is, it's the origin to Optimus and Megatron before they became enemies. And so they're younger, they don't have like all their power sets yet, but it's not really a coming of age story, but it's them rising to where they become in Transformers lore. And what I think this film also showcases really well is how two people with polar opposite personalities can become friends, but then when something huge happens in their life, you can see the opposite reaction to that. So you have the one side with Optimus Prime, where something bad happens, and he's a little bit more optimistic to it. He's a little bit more free will, let's go with the flow. But then you have someone like Megatron, who is a little bit more by the numbers, by the rules, and then when something goes against that, it turns on him, and it turns him into a vengeful, not really monster, but he kind of becomes that in a sense. And so this movie does a great job not only exploring them individually, but also exploring their friendship. So when you first see them on screen together, you can tell that they're best friends. And then the movie slowly and slowly and slowly shows how that friendship can tear apart over polar opposite worldviews. And it helps that the world building is also really articulate, and so you have some great visual style to a lot of the world of Cybertron. There's some really great action sequences and great visual sequences where you get to appreciate the landscape of Cybertron. And so this is a movie that I think tackles great themes. You got great characters, great animation, and it's just overall a blast. And probably my favorite thing, I might have said that 1,000 times, but I will keep saying that because that's how good this movie is. One of my favorite things about this movie is the score. The score brings the feels every time. It's epic. It brings the swelling motions of everything that this movie's building up to, and especially within the finale, delivers something really awesome and really grand scale. And this is just the beginning. I hope so. I hope we have more installments where we get to explore more of these characters. If not, this was a great one and done experience. And this is a movie that I would highly recommend to anyone to check out, because Transformers 1 is a great animated movie for kids and adults. The next film is Back in Action. This is my first ever 2025 release that I've seen this year. Obviously, it's only been a couple weeks. But this is an action movie directed by Seth Gordon. It was produced by Netflix and released on Netflix last weekend. And it stars as the two main leads and the main couple, Jamie Foxx and Cameron Diaz, who has not been on screen very much the past decade or so. Anyways, this is an action movie about these two spies that basically have to go back in action and protect their children from something crazy that happens. You know, with the agency that they ran and some former past friends and all that good stuff. Now, this is a movie that I didn't really hear too much about until a couple weeks ago when Netflix started promoting it. So, I thought I'd check it out. And my overall thoughts on Back in Action is it's almost too plain. It's almost too generic for me to recommend to anyone. I mean, there's not really any reason you'd watch this movie over anyone else or any other film. And the reason I say that is because, like most Netflix movies, I hate to say that, but it's kind of true, the action movie premise is kind of the same rinse, wash, repeat that this movie sadly falls trap under. And so you've got a story that you've seen before. You've got character dynamics that you've kind of seen before. You've got great actors, but nothing really stands out about their characters or their arcs or even just the overall story of everything. You also have action sequences that are pretty good, but they're not memorable. There's not really a sequence in this movie that stood out to me the most or, you know, like made me love action movies more. It delivers exactly what you expect. So, if this is a genre that you love, you are going to like this movie, and I am not going to take that away from you. But at least for me, even as somebody who likes action movies, I just felt like there was nothing remarkable that stood out in this movie. But then I also have to say there's not really anything that offends me in this movie. There's not really a ton of things that I can say, ooh, I don't think they should have done that. But I can also see the better version of this movie where maybe you could do a little bit more with the character arcs, especially the family dynamic, because that's what this movie kind of sells on, is the family dynamic. And I think it's fine, but it doesn't really go anywhere unique or special, and it doesn't really tug on the heartstrings like it should. And so, back in action, it's a passable Netflix movie that I probably won't ever rewatch again, but if you want to give it a shot as an action fan, go ahead. You might like this. Before I give the final TV show, I saw a TV show this week that I want to talk about. Before I talk about that, be sure to subscribe to the channel for more content in the future and more movie reports. Also, comment down below any movies, TV shows, and video games you'd like me to check out. Now, with that said, let's get back to the movie report. Now it's the TV report. I might need to change my title, but nope, not gonna happen. TV business coming in with not a film, show that actually touched me a lot as a fan of the main series that this is coming from. This is The Walking Dead, The Ones Who Live. Now, if you don't know what The Walking Dead is, it's basically a post-apocalyptic zombie show where you have a group of characters led by this one sheriff named Rick Grimes, and they go and survive and have a bunch of complications with humans, with zombies, and with the environment itself. And so, it's a show I really grew attached to because it's one of the first big TV shows that I binge watched and grew attached to. I loved all the characters. I loved a lot of the horrific elements to it, and especially the thematic exploration of trying to stay human in a world that's trying to tear humans apart. I really like that about this show. And so, this is a show that I heard about and never got a chance to watch, and finally devoted myself to watch it. And I will say, this is a worthy and remarkable successor/finale to the characters that this show is based on. So, in The Walking Dead, you have two characters. You have Rick Grimes and Michonne, who basically becomes his girlfriend, and in this show, it becomes his wife officially. And so, they are played by Andrew Lincoln and Denai Guerrera, and these are two characters that I love and are so cool in the show, but also have a lot about their characters that make them human. And that's what I love about The Walking Dead, is it's somehow able to capture what it means to stay human despite what everything else does. And The Ones Who Live is no exception. This, I believe, is some of the most raw and some of the best crafted The Walking Dead has presented, at least in my opinion. Because what this show does super well is you have these two great characters, like fan favorite characters. Everybody loves them, especially me. They have a really remarkable relationship, and this movie is about them reuniting after years and years of being separated. And so this is a relationship that, you know, there could be concerns going in, but the filmmakers and the TV show runners understood why these two characters are so beloved and why their relationship is so key to The Walking Dead. The two main actors, which of course is Andrew Lincoln and Denai Guerrera, have amazing chemistry. They bring A plus performances to these characters, and this show allows their characters to have time together. And at least when the show maybe rushes some things a bit, the relationship is never rushed. You can tell that the filmmakers prioritized this, and it was the show's strength. It's what made the show compelling. It's what helped the audience grow attached to these characters in a new light, where you see these two characters who've grown up even more in the apocalypse with different worldviews and are deciding whether their relationship can survive these changes or not, and what they're going to do about the world that's trying to tear them apart. And so you have that great exploration of the lengths that love can surpass, but you also have these great moments with these characters where you simply just them talking it out for maybe 15 minutes sometimes is some of the most impactful stuff that this show can present, and especially in the universe of The Walking Dead. And so not only that, you have a really compelling story of these characters trying to stay reunited after they find each other. But then you also have conflicting morals. You have these different conflicts that have come up because of their history and because of what happened over time, that maybe one sees as, oh, we need to figure this out, and the other one's like, well, that doesn't matter, what about this? So you have these two conflicting arguments between these characters, but then at the end of the day, you get to see them thrive together. You get to see them have hope together, and you get to see them become human together. That's what this show really lands on for me, is that even though there is a lot of time that this show takes to explore the past trauma and pain and affliction that these characters have gone through, it doesn't use that to degrade them, and it doesn't use that to make them seem evil. It makes them feel human. And so you have, again, these two great characters that have a great arc of love throughout these 6 episodes. And then not only that, you have a really great new set of world building and character dynamics with new characters they introduce and new places that they get to explore. I feel the new characters maybe not as impactful as the two main leads, but they're still pretty pivotal to what this show is trying to represent. They're trying to represent the hope that you can find, or you see people who don't have that hope or are trying to use false hope, as a way to basically lead others to do dangerous things. And so, again, this show brings the emotion and the grittiness so well. And I feel that is what made this show so special to me, is because with these great characters, with this great world building, with this great conflict, there's so much that this show can demonstrate to the audience, and especially to me, about something like, again, love pursuing all things despite what's trying to tear it apart. And so this is a show that if you are a fan of The Walking Dead, you are going to love this. This is going to be a great payoff to everything you love about The Walking Dead. And now that I'm thinking about it, another reason this show works so well is because of the production and the style. This show feels like a literal movie. It doesn't feel like a TV show. It feels like a longer 4-hour movie. That's my bad. This feels like a movie that was given great care to, that feels cinematic. And so, it doesn't necessarily feel episodic. It kind of does, but it feels like one complete story that's just broken out in separate parts. Especially if you binge watch it, you can feel the great cinematic presence that this movie brings. And so, the cinematography is really great. You got great music. You got great visual effects. And again, you have great world building. The only two minor complaints I have about this show is number one, some of the places we explore can feel a little bit too clean for something like the apocalypse. And I understand that like the main place that Rick Grimes is put in is meant to be the future of humanity. But I also feel like there should be a little bit more of a better like texture to like the set pieces or the costume designs to show that they're still in the apocalypse, but they're showing a new way in the apocalypse. And maybe some of that's not good, but you can also see the hope in that. It might feel a little bit too hopeful, at least just in terms of what the set pieces look like. And then another minor complaint is there are some times where even though they take a lot of patience with the two main characters and their plot point, there are other times where other plot points feel like they have to rush to get that back on track. So like I think it's episode 2 when it focuses mainly on Michonne. There's a great set of characters that are brought in, and then what they do with those characters is really awesome, but they don't really give enough time for those characters to be fleshed out even more, and especially to help flesh out Michonne's story even more. It kind of just abruptly gets cut off because the show has to keep progressing. The show has to keep going and get to its finale by episode 6. Maybe this is a show that could have been 1 or 2 episodes longer, which is weird to say. But at least for me, maybe that would have helped give some of these other things more time. Or even make episode 2 a little bit longer and just flesh out those things more. But other than that, I think this is an amazing show with an amazing cast, an amazing crew that really cared about these characters and delivered the ultimate experience for the conclusion to these characters. So this is a show I would highly recommend to anyone who's watched The Walking Dead. Thank you so much for tuning in to this movie report. If you like this video, show that down below. Comment any video games, movies, and TV shows that you'd like me to check out. And also, subscribe for more future content and movie reports. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time. Take care.